I want you to remember that I didn't start confident. I didn't start understanding this. I didn't start ready. I didn't start knowing the how or the pathway or if anything was going to work out. I always just took a bet on myself. And I really believe that it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are or what your current circumstances are. I really believe that if you have that fire, like I felt back then and still do, if you have that fire and you continue to build a life where you can fan that flame and you go after what you desire, you can literally create whatever you want.
Reclamation Era, the podcast where everything changes. It's time to own your voice, your wealth, and own your worth. Your story was never meant to stay quiet. Your voice was meant to rise. Your wealth was meant to expand. You were meant to influence. Welcome to The Threshold.
Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Reclamation Era. I am deeply honored to be sharing with you today, and I just want to take a moment to really thank you for being a part of this journey. I know that you have been called to this podcast because you were really ready for that next chapter in your life, whether that be financially, confidence in yourself, or just really being ready to make the big, bold moves in your life that you know that you're destined for. You know that you're ready for more, and you know that you're ready to stop allowing the stories of what used to stop you be the reasons and the fuel for the fire of what you're meant to do and move forward in 2026 and beyond. So today I wanted to go a little bit deeper into my story, as I feel it's really important as the foundation for this podcast and the sequence of what I'm really going to be sharing along this season, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of controversial aspects around sexual healing, the shadow aspects of sexual healing, trauma, reclaiming your authority as a woman, your wealth, your health, your freedom. It's sort of an all-encompassing. This is why I call my signature masterclass a holistic lifestyle reclamation, because I'm really a stand for women and people in general taking back their power in all areas that power has been taken away systemically, generationally. And that is around our voice, that is around our financial opportunities, that is around our sexuality and just our unique expression of what we're bringing into the world. And I know a lot of people who find me in the online space, they may look at me today and think, oh my gosh, of course that she's able to do these kinds of things, living in Europe, making money online because she's got all this confidence. She's bold, she's unapologetic, she just doesn't actually give a fuck. And I kind of want to share where this comes from, because I believe we really heal through hearing other people's stories. Yeah, this is literally how we used to thrive together in communities. And I love that it has been modernized really through the online world. Maybe we're not standing around campfires with no Wi-Fi and only connected with the land and each other at this time, but we do still have this connection through social media and hearing other people's stories. And I know for me, when I was in this big transition, particularly when I was transitioning out of foster care, reading stories of people who have really gone through the deepest, darkest shit in their lives and come out not only stronger, but literally it allowed them to be really the propeller of what they created in the world. And I really believe those of us who have gone through the most, we understand struggle, we understand pain, so we understand deeper the value of getting out of pain, and we don't take that lightly or for granted. So I just wish to share today a little bit about my story so you can really understand who I am, so you can understand that I didn't start this way. I didn't start ready. I didn't start confident. I didn't start feeling in my power. And in fact, even today, I love to say that I'm still in my becoming, because in my belief, I don't really feel that there's ever a destination. We're always growing. We're always evolving. So to just humanize it a bit. And where I desire to first share with you is really why I'm so passionate about doing the work that I do today. And we all have a reason why we have a big dream and a big vision in our heart, the things that we want to change in the world. And it really comes from what we didn't have growing up, what our parents didn't have, what they modeled to us to not be, to be. And for me, I wake up every single day reminding myself how blessed I am to have this opportunity to be alive, to be on purpose, because my mother is actually a really big role model, I guess, so to speak, icon, but really she's my angel. And she took her life back in, gosh, I can't remember exact year. I think it was 2009, 2010. And I was actually just turned 16 at the time, and I was in foster care. I had gotten taken into foster care when I was 12 years old. My mother and I, it was just her and I. My mom and my father actually met in a rehab, and I was my mother's only sober baby. She was really at this point where I was her third kid. And the first two, didn't get to actually grow up with her because she was going in and out of prison and struggling with substance abuse and unhealed trauma. She went through deep abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, that got passed down to her, and sort of continuing to run that circuit through. And I have so much compassion for those of us in the previous generations, because they did not have, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents didn't have the access to personal development and resources that we have today to really uncover these blocks and uncover what's really underneath us so we could really heal. So my mother was just she was a freaking badass. I always speak about her in this way, that she was sort of like a prodigy child, to be honest, because this woman literally could build a house doing construction. She could work on computers. She was a car mechanic. She was super psychic. She was drop dead gorgeous. She could play every musical instrument you could ever think of just by ear, picking it up. She sang like an angel. She even beat men in weightlifting competitions. She was outrageously smart and an incredible artist, dancer, creative, but continued to stay in the box of what society was expecting of her, what her parents were expecting of her. My grandparents on my maternal aspect, my grandmother is actually Japanese. And it's definitely true, there is a huge influence of the medical industry and a desire for your offspring to go into the medical field. And I actually was about to go to 10 years of school to go be a doctor. In fact, it was going to be a plastic surgeon. Funny enough, I would have not done well in that. I would have graduated literally in 2024 if I didn't go an alternative path. And it was prompted because my mother, literally, we would grow up watching this show, or I would grow up watching this show with her called Nip Tuck. And I just remember her always saying, look, they make lots of money. You can help fix mom's boobs. You can help her fix her nose and her lips and her tummy and all these things. And growing up, seeing my mother try so hard to be chosen, yet she was saying she was asexual. She didn't need a man. She had so much healing to do from the masculine. Never had a partner the whole time that she raised me, except for one that happened maybe a year and a half. And it was a very interesting thing to witness. And what I ultimately saw was a woman who really tried so hard to hold it all together, to be the tough one, to be the strong one, and never got to fully surrender and allow herself to be led by her truth. She was baptized by 30 different churches, like no joke, 30 different churches, different religions. And I remember having these particular events that happened in life where we were Jehovah's Witnesses at one point, and my mom still had an altar that she had a wand that she had made with her blood. She like practiced witchcraft as well. We would watch Harry Potter for the holidays every year. That was like my best childhood memories of when there was some sanity going on and connection with my family. And when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, she didn't hide any of that stuff, right? She was trying to really like just own who she is and what she's interested in, whilst also exploring other ways to ultimately be saved. And there was a falling out with the woman who came over to do Bible study with us. And I was 8 years old, and I remember getting a letter at our home from this woman, and had said that my mother was a devil worshiper, and and referencing some guy in the Bible that got his head chopped off because he celebrated his birthdays. And anyway, I was 8 years old, okay? I had a male teacher in second grade. I was saying, it was my first male teacher, I was saying, I hate God, I hate men, why is God a male anyway? And I just had so much of this anger and rebellion that I felt from my mom, that she didn't have very much outlet to actually process this anger. So it came out in a lot of our relationship. Me and my mother had a very intense, very violent relationship, and I have had to do a lot of clearing and healing around this to come to this place where I really see that I have compassion for this woman who really did the best that she could, but she couldn't really fully take full ownership of her healing and her growth. It was always pointed to the dogma of religion, or the government not giving her enough benefits, or anything outside of what she could take the reins in her own power. And I share this in a way that I'm being very mindful, because of course I respect and honor and love my mother dearly. I'm so grateful that she put me on this earth, but she surely taught me a lot of what happens when we don't actually reclaim our power. And this is why I'm so foundationally passionate about this, because at that time when I was 8 years old saying, I hate God, I hate men, I had also started to develop an eating disorder, a bulimic binge and purge eating disorder when I was 8 years old. Obsessively over-exercising, sitting here getting all these seeds planted in my mind about how I could be a doctor and fix women and myself and my mom, and it was quite intense. So by the time when she had passed away, when I was in foster care, I had kind of come to this crossroads where I had just gotten back from being actually on the run from foster care. And when I was on the run from foster care, I had gotten bounced to 14 different homes in 5 years. I was in foster care from when I was 12 to 17. There was a time where I dropped out and I got into all the drinking, all the smoking, all the drugs. And I'm talking like hard street drugs. I literally slept under bridges with other delinquent, lost kids that we were just trying to fight back for our own independence. And when my mother had passed away, I was less than 1 year sober from amphetamines. And I wanted to so bad to drown away my sorrows in drinking and escape and go potentially back to the streets and back to this entire world that I had experienced when I was on the run. But I was in this foster home where luckily this woman, she never told me no. It was literally the one foster home that I got to after being on the run and escaping so many times, where I got to actually have the spaciousness of someone not trying to control my every move. I got to explore what I really wanted for myself. And, statistically, they say that if you've experienced those kinds of things, sexually, with abuse and drugs, you end up falling down that path. But there was something in me that just felt like I am not going to go down this path. And I had a huge fire lit under my ass. Massively. I quit cold turkey the medication that they had me on in foster care. I just was a full body no. I started to do yoga. I remember getting this DVD from Jillian Michaels and doing this yoga routine so consistently that I actually started teaching it to a youth group at that time. And I had just gone all in really doing whatever I could to even graduate a year early so I could just get the fuck out. I grew up in a small town called Clear Lake. If you know, you know. Lake County is a place where really nobody goes unless you retire and you want to have a home there and you want to go fish on the lake, which is why my grandpa actually owned a home there. And or maybe you just don't have enough money to leave and you just stayed. And it's one of those places where it's such a small town and a small place that everybody had such tunnel vision. Nobody really got out, and unless you really, really, really fought your way out of it. And so I did that. I fought my way out of it, and I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for that fire that got lit under me to really allow her death to be a big lesson to me of me committing to myself to do whatever it was that I needed to do to create a better life for myself, one that she didn't get the opportunity to have. And that fire is still lit in me until this day. I did end up graduating early, and at first I was starting to go to college. I still definitely had a eating disorder going on, and I was in a transitional housing program because when you transition out of foster care, I'm really blessed that there was this transitional housing program where they require you to work a full-time job or go to school full-time, or maybe you do half and half of both. You know, you got to stay in the system, and they pay your rent. They give you some money for food and utilities and things like this. So of course it was a really great transition for me, not having parents to go back to, but I ended up having a drunk driver hit my car while I was in a parking lot. Nobody got hurt. I was not in there. The guy's still alive. He just like fell asleep on the wheel. And you know, those moments in life where something comes up and you just, it again can go one way or another way. This is like another turning point. I got literally $9,000 dropped into my account from the insurance company to reimburse me for my car. And that was the most zeros I had ever seen in a bank account in my life. And I thought, oh my God, you know, I had just started to go to festivals. I had gone to my first Burning Man about 9 months prior to this happening. And I knew about this festival called Envision in Costa Rica. And I had never left the country ever. I'm the first person in my family to even have a passport. I remember when I asked my mom if we could go travel to Thailand. I really wanted to go to Thailand when I saw the movie The Beach from Leonardo DiCaprio, and she just said, Saber, we don't travel. We're too poor for that. And I thought, well, fuck. So when I had this happen when I was 19 years old, I was like, well, I don't know when I'm going to be able to travel again until after I graduate college, by the time I'm 29 years old, right? Because I was about to sign away to go into medical school for about 10 years. And I tell you, everybody needs to travel. I'm a firm believer that everybody needs to leave the area that they grew up in. I'm a firm believer that everybody needs to start traveling, because that culture shock that happens when you actually get out of your own hometown and you get out of your own country and you realize how much opportunity we really do have in a first world country, and just what actually is out there beyond the systems, beyond the 9 to 5, beyond the traditional school systems. So I got this taste of freedom, and I came back. I stayed out way too long. It was about 5 weeks I was out to Costa Rica. Came back. Of course, I got kicked out of the housing program because you totally were not allowed to do that. And I got fired from the caregiving that I was doing as well. Of course, makes sense. That was my job at the time, going to school. But I just had something in me that was like, I need to use this money to invest in something that I'm probably never going to have the opportunity to do otherwise, because what if there's something else out there for me? And this is where a lot of people think, well, what if I do this and then I don't have the money and then I fail on the current route that I'm on, right? And I've just had so many of these experiences where I took this leap, I took this chance on myself to really go for something that was really out of the box, that was totally out of my comfort zone, that always transformed my life for the better each and every single time. So I came back and I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm a creative, I'm good with my hands. I thought it was a cool idea to go buy a minivan and go live van life. Shit, maybe the kind of freedom I really want in my life is not a security or benefits of good retirement plan from having a medical degree and being a doctor. What if I actually get more for my soul by waking up to beaches every day? So that's what I did. I tried it out. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. And if all else fails, my plan B was to go back to school and get a regular job. And I totally could have, but I never ever did again. Because what I found was something that really allowed me to get really connected deeper to a holistic path and connect with my hippie phase of life. I was in Santa Cruz, California at the time, and it was just such a perfect place. It definitely felt very safe to be doing van life at the time because so many other people were in Santa Cruz, California, and it was fun. It was beautiful, and actually I ended up making handmade art. I started literally going to festivals and putting I made beautiful headpieces for belly dancers. This is something I always wanted to make for myself because I had already gotten into performing arts and things of this nature in festivals. And I thought, I just want to make these incredible adornments because I can't afford them myself, so I'm just going to DIY them. And I was really good at it. So I was like, why don't I just sell them? So that was my journey of living that very nomadic, handmade artist, free flowing type of lifestyle, and it was very fun. It was very fulfilling until it was just really allowing me to question myself of the real sustainability. 2019, I was about 3 years deep into vending at festivals. I had upgraded to a short bus, so I had more space. I could actually stand in my home on wheels, and I had more space to create my art. And I was vending at some festivals that I was really, really proud of myself for the booth that I had created. It was called Less is More, Medicine and Magic. And I just felt like, wow, I'm in my element. I'm following the magic. I'm getting paid to do what I love. But here's the thing. I did really want to have a home, okay? Like, it's so glamorized to do bus life or van life. And if anyone feels called to do that life, like, absolutely. Everyone should try it. If you have a desire to do it, go for it. But for me, I really desired to have some sustainability. It gets old after a few years, I think I was in the minivan for maybe almost 2 years. And then I met a partner at the time, and I ended up staying with him for a while. And then we both ended up going to live in my bus together for about a year. And this is when we were doing the whole festival circuit in the west coast of the USA, and we went to 26 events in 2019. Oh, I'm talking craft fairs and pagan festivals and fairy festivals, Renaissance fairs, conscious music festivals, whatever I could really get my hands on, put a blanket out and hustle my art. And, at that point, there was definitely some things on the side that were not entirely legal because that life wasn't actually sustainable for me. And I can say that with confidence now because it's been long enough. I've been so far out of that world of, slanging my ceremonial medicines around. And as much as I felt really connected to that mission, I also had to be real with myself of like, okay, what is this actually going to look like in another 10 years? I had met people at festivals who were in their 50s to their 70s who were vendors, and they were also doing things on the side in the back end that were not quite legal. And I was like, holy shit, this is like such a front. And there were so many people that were so jaded about where the market has been and the economy and all these things. And people's identities were their mindset was very much like, well, this is just the way it is, you know? And I was like, oh, I know that familiar story. You know, that's definitely what everybody was saying of where I grew up. And I thought, you know, I understand at this point, even though I was in a place where I feel like I was really flying by the seat of my pants, I just really understood that doing things before you're ready, taking a chance on yourself, and really understanding that you don't actually have to sacrifice, it's not going to happen overnight. But I could not just settle for what was being presented to me. And I had just had so many breakdowns. You know, I still actually had a eating disorder at the time too, and I realized my eating disorder, it came from trying to have control in my life. And I think that those of us who are entrepreneurs, are good entrepreneurs, who are really savvy and have those street smarts, we are also kind of control freaks. And that's why we're able to make some shit happen that most people might not have the audacity to. But I was like really seeing how toxic that was by not really allowing myself to have sustainability. So this was all pre-COVID, and this is basically what ended up for me to start to do what I do today, which is I've partnered with a holistic medical grade wellness technology in affiliate marketing, and I actually partnered with a platform as well. So I learned how to monetize my personal brand and literally get paid to be who I am by sharing my heart, my story, and who I am. And I didn't know it at the time. I kind of had an inkling. I was like, I feel like if I learn how to channel my creativity in the online world, I could take all of these multifacets of who I am, and I don't need to try and hustle and put them in a box. I just wanted to crack that code of digital nomads, because I was like, there's clearly people who are making a lot of money who don't have all this inventory and all this chaos that I was trying to juggle around like a one-woman circus, you know? So long story short, that's really what brought me to this space. But I knew that there was something underneath this that was more than money. I knew that I wanted to do something that was going to allow me to really take all of my lessons and my wisdom and the wisdom that I continue to get. I started this business, gosh, when I was 25 years old. And I knew that stories, listening to stories from when I was in foster care, when I was going through substance abuse, and when I was just so uncertain in my life, I knew that I wanted to convey my story to other foster youth, to other women who have struggled with eating disorders, to other people who have struggled with confidence issues. I'm a dancer today, and I literally grew up always saying that I could never move my body, I could never dance. So I thought, oh my gosh, this would be a beautiful way to just share my codes with the world and actually allow that to be my livelihood. So that's ultimately where I stand today. And throughout this podcast, I really desire to share the pieces of my journey of what it really took for me to get to this space. I will be sharing deeper about what I do. If you guys want to actually watch my signature masterclass, the one at the time of this recording, it's called a Holistic Lifestyle Reclamation. There should be a link in the show notes for you to register. It's free. It's a free training that really introduces what I do. But more importantly, I want to share more of the codes of what really got me here. Because yes, there's a business model that I partnered with, but I believe you can take whatever business model, even what I was doing before, but if you take the elements of empowerment in your journey into whatever it is that you bring to the world, then you could really, truly be, do, and have it all. So as I share through these next episodes, I just wanted to share this particular story because anybody who's listening to the following episodes, I want you to remember that I didn't start confident. I didn't start understanding this. I didn't start ready. I didn't start knowing the how or the pathway or if anything was going to work out. I always just took a bet on myself. And I really believe that it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are or what your current circumstances are. I really believe that if you have that fire, like I felt back then, and still do, if you have that fire and you continue to build a life where you can fan that flame and you go after what you desire, you can literally create whatever you want. So today, I'm very blessed to say that I have healed a lot of my eating disorder. I will say that I call myself I'm recovering from my eating disorder because it's a lifelong journey. Your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, your relationship with control, right? And again, I don't believe in this word healed, or I don't feel that there's really a destination. I feel like we continue weaving more of these lessons as we continue going through life. But even back then, when I said I hated God, I hated men, and these elements and stories and narratives that I picked up from such a chaotic background, I started to flip them on its head and really learn how to create my own narrative around them. So I'm also going to be unpacking a lot of that, my personal spiritual journey and my relationship with God, Goddess, Father Sky, Mother Earth. I like to call myself an omnist. Omnist is very much like you take what you like and leave the rest, from a lot of different philosophies, religions, spiritual outlooks. I just personally am not about dogma, and that's very clear from when I ran away from foster care and just could not be controlled, Like I literally ran away from a group home that was, gosh, I think it was called a level 12 group home or something like this. And juvenile hall is a level 16, okay? So basically, I wasn't on lockdown, but I was highly monitored. Literally, there were kids that had to stand in line to get toothpaste put on their toothbrush, and they're timed in the bathroom when they're taking a shit. You know what I mean? Like, this was the kind of... I only lasted 1 week there, and I finally got the ovaries, the balls, to run away and go fucking... just break out of that system because I didn't want to be controlled. And I'm very much around that overall. And I'm such a stand for sovereignty. Of course, there was a rebellious aspect that maybe created more chaos. When I ran away, it was not puppies and rainbows. Being a 14-year-old girl running away, being on the streets where she was previously on medication, and suddenly she didn't have her medication on the streets. That's a lot of freaking chaos. But what it did teach me is the importance of having sovereignty and the detriment of what happens when people do submit to control. And with the way that the world is going and all of the truth that's being revealed, I think people can agree more and more that it's very dangerous to allow yourself to just hide under a rock around what's going on and pretend everything is fine and keep, going to a job that maybe you could get laid off at any point, right? And placing all our security in a system that's literally not designed for us to thrive. And my goal is to really support you all in really finding the courage, the bravery, the audacity, the street smarts, the creativity, did I already say courage? The heart, the trust in yourself to really reclaim your authority and change your life in any other aspect. And I just am proud to be a permission slip of what's really possible when you do that. And I know for sure that this is supportive for the right people, and Boo Boo agrees. This is supportive for the right people who understand this message. And I would love to hear from you. If you are feeling really inspired around this journey that I'm initiating with Reclamation Era, and I would love to hear some of the things that you struggle with in this time around your journey of reclamation. And I would love to receive those messages. So if you want to message me on Facebook, you could just find me, the links in the show notes to my Instagram and my Facebook. I want to hear from you. I want to serve you. I have incredible topics to lay out and incredible guests I'll be bringing on as well to share their stories and their expertise and what changed their life and their modalities. But if I hear from you, it will be so beautiful because we can infuse that within what we bring into this podcast. So thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. And I trust that this resonated for the right person, the right woman. And remember, that you truly can be, do, and have it all.
Thank you for your continued presence within the Reclamation Era podcast. If you loved this episode, subscribe and leave a review, because at the end of the day, the more people we can empower in this world to empower themselves, the better. And if at any point you feel called to explore the global legacy pathway I've chosen to own my voice, wealth, and worth, my signature masterclass is in the show notes. As above, so below. See you next time.